Ladies from Bancolombia 4, welcome to your first virtual video class. Now, we have two different kinds of virtual video classes that we have to give you. This will be your first one. And in this first one, it's time. It's time. And that's why I put this image as the first thing that I wanted you to see. Because one of the things that we're going to be working with is exactly the thing that tortures you guys the most. And it's basically creative imagination, speaking. And by this, we're going to be doing questions 1 and questions 2 of the TOEFL speaking part, okay? So what are we going to be doing here? Okay, well, just like the title says here, right there in this picture, I want you to really take this title to heart. It's time to work a little harder. Guys, seriously, I know that this is hard, and I know that this is something that in many ways it can kind of make you feel a little bit uncomfortable and make you feel a little bit insecure about yourself with your English language, and I completely understand that. I get it, I really do, and that's why we're here. We want you to work a little harder for this, okay? So the kinds of instructions and the kinds of descriptions that we're going to be giving you for the first two questions of the TOEFL, they're going to be clear, they're going to be precise, and we're just going to take it step by step, so that way, what you're going to do, part of this class is, besides me explaining everything, besides me explaining the theory, and besides me explaining the step-by-step process in terms of planning and in terms of how you speak and in what kinds of words you should use or should not use, well, the other part is basically you actually sending us some audios that we can actually take and observe and possibly make some corrections on, so that way we can begin climbing and climbing and climbing little by little, in terms of these speaking questions. Okay, so let's begin, guys. Okay, so independent tasks. There are two independent tasks in a TOEFL exam. One is a free choice response, and the other is a paired response. Now, we talked about this before in the last class, okay? You guys took notes about this, and I explained it in the sense that the free choice response is just basically a direct question, right? It's a WH question most of the time, so it'll ask you something related to your family, your friends, your hobbies, your likes, your dislikes, general cultural information, social, maybe political information, as you can. And remember that the TOEFL adapted itself a little bit over the past couple of years, so now it has these new questions that can ask you something a little bit more social political, right? So it might get a little bit more complicated, but don't worry. There's absolutely no problem. Because remember, what's important here is not the kind of knowledge that you have in terms of those social political topics, if in case you actually get a question like that. No. The most important thing here is your English language. They don't really care about your political issues or your political beliefs or your beliefs in general. They don't care who you are as a human or as a person. They just care about how well you can speak and how well you're able to fit the ideas together with details, with examples, with reasons, and with experiences, if you have some experiences. Now, you might think to yourself, oh my God, does this mean that you're going to start asking us questions about Colombian history or Latin American history? No. No, that's never happening, so don't even worry about that. That's not something that the TOEFL has ever asked. Like, it's never going to ask any kind of question regarding to Colombia or Latin America for that matter. So that's never going to happen. But the questions will be kind of generic in terms of the social political situation. So it'll ask you something like, oh, the government is thinking about building a bridge around your neighborhood. Do you agree or disagree with it? You see what I mean? So it's those kinds of questions. It's pretty generic in nature, actually. Okay, so moving on, let's get to this part where it's talking about what a good response actually is. Here, I really want you to pay attention because this is exactly the kind of information that you should be given. It doesn't matter if it's for an independent choice response or for a paired choice response. This is the kind of information that you should be given. So, first part. It has to be coherent. Sorry, by the way, about the image. I don't know why it came out this way. It's a little bit blurred out, but I'll be reading the whole thing to you so you guys can know exactly what it says. So, going back, it's coherent. It means that it's logical and relevant to the topic itself. So we don't want you to be diving into other different ideas. If the question is asking you about your favorite vacation spot, you maintain your response in terms of what that vacation spot is, okay? Maintain your response in there. Don't start talking about other different things that, like they may or may not have something to do with the vacation spot, but then you're giving too much importance to it. That's not the point. The point is the vacation spot, right? Number 2, it contains good grammatical structure. That means no major errors that prevent understanding. This does not happen to either of you. Laura, Eliana, you guys have good grammatical structure. We've been practicing this for like a whole year. Actually, pretty much for like a whole year we've been practicing this in terms of the kind of good grammar that you're using. And go back to your notes. Go back to all of the classes that we've done before. All of that grammar, all of that vocabulary, it helps, okay? Excuse me. So let's continue with vocabulary. Uses interesting words and ideas for expression. Now, we're not talking about using big academic words, really big technical words or anything like that. That's not what we're talking about. And the examiners of the TOEFL, they're not so interested in that either, because to be honest, they sometimes feel like that's a little bit forced if you start using these scientific terms or these really big political terms or something like that, or financial terms or anything like that. None of that is important at all, because again, these questions, even though there might be a moment where you might get some of these social political kinds of questions, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't mean that they're asking you to give social political responses with that kind of vocabulary. They're just asking you to be as relevant as you can with the vocabulary that you already have, with the vocabulary that's already in your database, and how can you make sure that that vocabulary connects well with the ideas that you're trying to express, and therefore gives a good message in terms of the ideas that you want to highlight in your response, okay? So it doesn't really matter if you're using, these phrasal verbs or these adjectives or those adverbs. Just make sure that everything is well organized, and just make sure that whatever vocabulary you do use, it's used correctly in order for you to express your message well. That's about it, basically. Last 2 topics in order to finish this picture and move on to the next topic. Well-structured response, which means that it has a nice flow between ideas using signal words to organize the flow. Now, notice the word signal words, right? Now, we like to refer to them as transition words or transition expressions, connectors, conjunctions, those kinds of things. Therefore, however, furthermore, but, moreover, nonetheless, those kinds of things. As a result, most likely, whatever. Those kinds of expressions, those kinds of words, they really help a lot in terms of you being able to give your responses in a way that the examiners, they feel like you're really invested into the information. They really feel like they know that you know what you're talking about, and you want that. You want to come off with that kind of impression. So it's one thing to say something like, smoking is really bad. It sends you to the hospital. That, even though the 2 sentences were structurally correct and the English was perfectly fine and all of that, that's fine. But then if you want to make it sound a little bit more interesting, like you want to make it sound not so boring, you could say something like, smoking is really bad. And as a result of that, it can send you to the hospital. So you see how things change there, and my tone of voice also changes. So because of those signal words, or as we like to refer to them as transition words, they kind of help you change your tone of voice as well. They change the whole tone, basically. They are the representation of the tone inside of your response. So these transition words, we also have to start working on them a lot, and we have to start using them quite frequently inside of the classes and outside of the classes too. Last topic. Contains few filler ideas. Fillers, long pauses. Basically, you want to do that as less as you can. It's pretty simple, but it takes time to be able to master that and try to dominate that. Okay, next topic. Question 1, free choice response. If you could live anywhere, where would you live? Use reasons to support your response. Okay, Eliana, Laura, go. Make the question right now. No, I'm just playing. Don't worry about it. There's still one more thing that we have to do. That was just a little bit of a joke, but we are going to go back to that question later on, okay? So, this is what we're going to do.